Hi, my name is Zaunscherb. I'm the CEO and chair of the board of Silver Mining. Ticker is GRSL on the Toronto Venture Exchange. I'm here to talk about the Plomosas project, over 400 square kilometers in Sinaloa, Mexico, with the focus on high-grade silver gold mineralization. We have a lot to do, 2 underground exploration programs, and we're very excited about the news flow over the next few months and ultimately leading to resource updates in the first quarter of 23.
Hello, Eric. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good, but I live here. What are you doing here?
I don't know. I just found myself here in the hailstorms and all the things that are going on in the city.
It's been quite biblical, hasn't it?
It has.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. All seriousness, you're here with some of the team, meeting a few investors.
Absolutely.
And what type of people are you trying to talk to?
Institutional investors.
Right. Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, we have a very strong retail following and we have some very, very great, loyal, long-term institutional investors, but that's a base that we can expand upon.
Well, here's the reason I'm glad we're talking, right? So I heard the story January, yes. I think it was, and I was kind of unsure of kind of how the company's kind of coming at the project. A lot of things to like, and I was trying to understand them a bit better. That's changed recently. You're the CEO.
Yep. Effective March 1st.
Effective March 1st. We've seen a few nice press releases. What's changed?
Really, what's changed is that we are getting through the hardest part, in that we had several years where Marcio Fonseca, the founder, CEO, and president, did a fantastic job of building this portfolio of land in the Rosario district of Sinaloa, Mexico. And taking these properties, taking historical databases from previous operators, over 500 drill holes at Plomosas, over 1,000 drill holes at La Trinidad, welding all of that together, putting together an exploration model focused on high-grade silver and gold. That's the challenge. And so where we are at right now is that we are finding high-grade silver and gold. We are being successful with that model. And so consequently, as the project gets bigger and more complex, as we need to advance these, it's appropriate for Marcio to focus on what's happening in Mexico, doing the magic down in Mexico, tuning the AM radio to get a strong signal. Right. So we had a lot of noise before with different showings here and there, getting some really nice high grade, but now focusing that in on the true signal of the project.
Right. Okay. This shot out of the gate early on. Amazing valuations, amazing share price. Everyone was interested. It kind of fell away a bit. And I spoke to Marcio, rationale reasons behind that, right? So I think I would probably did you a disservice, in a, not the company a disservice in a way. So there's a few little variables which I need to understand to sort of see how this fine tuning is actually going to manifest itself. Yes. For instance, right? So if I look at two things that come out in press releases recently. One, you've got this debt component which you've dealt with, okay, and I'll let you explain how in a second, but I'm more interested in the why, and also you've gone and raised a little bit of money with these kind of special warrant components. So you seem to be like you're trying to clean up the balance sheet. That seems a priority.
Absolutely.
So talk me through all that.
Sure. Well, first of all, there was a component of debt, as you put it, which was basically your option to acquire the San Marcial property. So that's been exercised. That was $2.5 million that had to be dealt with. Then part of the acquisition of La Trinidad is taking on the mining tax concession arrears. Yeah. And that's still there. But what's quite interesting is in Mexico, you have several things that are going on where, you by taking certain concessions away, you can diminish that. And basically, we've consolidated a number of concessions, right? And we're focusing on the core. So that leaves over 300 square kilometers out there that is an optionality for us that other parties can come in and joint venture. And so we've got people in the data room, people having signed CAs. And so we're working on that. In addition, you've got the reality that in Mexico, you get statute barred. So as long as certain mining tax concession arrears are there for a period of 5 years, every year older ones drop off. Okay. And so there's a way that we're going to see the working capital deficit, the debt as you were referring to, drop off over time. So that's a key part.
Okay, so you've got the money in, and we'll talk about that in a second.
Yes.
But you've come in. That's the interesting bit to me, right? And changing the narrative. I mean, what did you think you walked into? Because obviously you were associated with it before, but it wasn't wholesale bad. It was a lot of good bits, but it just kind of felt like the order of play wasn't quite right. What have you come and changed?
As I started to say, I think that Marcio's done a fantastic job in building this company, and he's doing a great job in managing the process in Mexico. And it's an opportunity for us all to play to our strengths. So Marcio's strength is there. As an analyst, a former analyst for 34 years on the street, I can tell a story. And so it was a great opportunity for me to roll up my sleeves, cease being a movie critic, and actually help make a movie for a change. So it was a great chance to step in that communications role, to get out into the capital markets, get the money in the door so that Marcio and the exploration team can do the job that they are best suited for. Okay,
so part of that narrative, you're going to have to tell the Mexican story now, because obviously the government's it's kind of shooting itself in the foot a little bit.
Yes, as governments do that every once in a while.
They do, and it's part of a wider conversation around what South American governments are doing in this environment at the moment. You know, forget about the EIA, ESG, environmental components of this. I'm talking about the politic of it. It's long-standing. I guess every political cycle, it happens. But Mexico recently, that was a big, bold move from them. How are you dealing with the reaction from the market to that?
I would say that actually our stock has gone up relative to the other Mexican stocks with the peer group. And that's because...
Would you say that? Or would you say you flatlined, everyone else has come off?
Yeah, that's why I say
that's a win.
Up relative.
Right. Okay.
Flat is good.
It is in this case.
In this case, it is. I mean, and part of the reason is that we have money, we're moving forward, we have a good story to tell, and we have an obvious re-rating to come. At the same time, as Mexico's doing its thing, it's still a great place to work. We have a fantastic group of people there, and the social license is strong. We're doing really wonderful things in the community from an education and health perspective. And so we are an underground exploration program in two places, two underground exploration programs on the same project. And so that insulates us from any concerns about open pit. It's a brownfield site. It was mined Plomosas from 86 to 2000. And so you've got infrastructure there, you've got power lines, you've got people. And from that perspective, we're in a good place. And so we feel comfortable. We're not going to be mining next year. We have 2 resource updates coming in the first quarter of 23. So we'll see how this all plays out over the next 4 or 5 years.
Right. Okay. But I want to stick with the Mexico thing. Right. So there's this brownfield site. Great. There's a lot of infrastructure there that you've actually got as part of the package. You are now got the money. You'll be drilling and resource estimates coming out. That's fantastic. And of course the team on the ground. Lovely. But as you said, Mexico is not getting the love it once was from the marketplace. People are struggling. They're cash constrained. What do you need to do? Or can you take advantage of that? And what would it take? Clearly, you've got to deliver your own project first and move that forward, right? So what's happening in the Mexican environment with all these little junior miners, which were de rigueur in 2020?
Well, one could argue that the best defense is a good offense. And so if that's the right opportunity right now and we see things that are conveniently priced, there may be opportunities.
But not on the agenda right yet?
Not on the agenda this week.
Could it do your stuff?
Absolutely. The focus is move San Marcial and Plomosas forward.
Right. So given the money you've got, what can you do in each of those? What's the order of play? What's the allocation of capital?
Yeah, we're looking at roughly 4,000 meters at San Marcial and 4,500 meters at Plomosas. That's by the end of this year. And then we'd have the 2 resource updates. Right. And so the 2 resource updates are going to then drive the next step. Right. I mean, so one logical step would be an integrated PEA looking at both operations together. They're 5 kilometers apart. Right. The mineralogy is a bit different. The metallurgy is slightly different, but we need to look at that.
So remind us of some of the numbers. Obviously, maybe a joint PEA would seem to make sense, but what do we know now versus what are you hoping to be able to deliver with 8,500 meters of drilling?
Well, again, we'll have the 2 resource updates. At Plomosas, the story is a question of grade.
Right.
Okay. At San Marcial, it's a question of expansion. expansion to depth and expansion along the key upper and lower volcanics contact.
Okay, so let's go for number one there.
Sure.
Grade. Clearly you're talking about higher grade.
Yes.
Chasing higher grade.
Absolutely.
So what are you going to be able to do about that? So what data do you have now? What are you going to have to put in place to be able to find more high grade?
Sure. When you look at it, the Plomosas initial resource, the first resource for the project, came out in August 21. And that was delayed from earlier in the year. So that was disappointment number one, is people like to see things delivered on time. Secondly is the grade. So you had all these different zones and showings all over the project. And again, that's the hard part, is that we've got this great resource or historical database. What do we do with it? Where is the center of gravity? And so you're drilling here and you're drilling there, and you get 3 kilograms over X meters here, and you get 5 kilograms over X tens of centimeters there. And so that creates an expectation that the Plomosas resource is going to be of, this lovely high grade. And it goes back to your comment about the way the stock was viewed earlier last year. Then you deliver something that is 40 grams per ton silver plus some gold. And as one wag on Twitter put it, this is a silver anomaly. It's nothing economic.
Yeah.
So instantly you put GR silver in the basket that says, well, it's not economic.
Yeah.
And that explains why we're trading at 53 cents EV per ounce of silver in the ground versus a mean of $1.35, $1.40 for the peers. And you're going, okay, well, that's a discount that's deserved, right? Now, what are we doing about it? Well, the interesting thing is, if you look at production, the average production grade at Plomosas, while it was a mine that was focused on for the lead and zinc, was 190 grams per ton silver and just under a gram of gold. That's a lot of precious metal content for a base metal mine, but that's where they were focused. So when you look at the selective sampling that went into the historical work, they were a base metal mine. They're focused on the sulfides. So they're taking the sulfides in the upper contact and the lower contact. Oh, there's some galena, there's some sphalerite. Let's sample that. They left the entire interval in between unsampled in many key areas. And so our belief is that as we do some very surgical drilling from surface and underground, that surgical drilling will demonstrate that those unsampled areas that went into the database, into the resource model at 0 grade in those intervals, that will change the average grade when we revisit that resource model. And so we had 5,000 underground samples that suggested that grade is considerably higher. We've got the production records that say it's 190 grams on average. We're not going to promise 190 grams. Obviously, we can't do that, but we can say that we hope to move the needle, that the vector is upward.
It needs to move a lot, right? It doesn't
from 40 grams, absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. And I guess that's a good example of where companies trying to drill for headlines and not drill systematically.
Yeah.
As geologists would want to, if money was no problem.
Yeah.
Is it the same team? And he was part of that decision making in terms of saying, well, come on, let's get back to the basics of geology here.
Geologically, it's the same team.
Right.
Like I said, they were taking that historical information and trying to find out, okay, where's the best place to go here? Okay, now we know where the best place is. We know that Plomosas to upgrade the grade and that San Marcial to expand the deposit, that's the place to focus. And so if you look at the news releases, the last couple of news releases at Plomosas, you're getting 6.5 meters of 1.1 kilos of silver. You're getting, that includes 0.9 of 3.1 kilos of silver in areas that are in the block model for less than 100 grams.
Okay.
All right. So there's a proof of concept there.
That you've got to deliver.
That we are delivering. That those two most recent news releases are demonstrating that thesis, that it's not 40, it's somewhat higher, is real.
How many holes is that based off of?
There's 13 holes right now.
Okay.
And that's the start. A little bit of surface drilling. We have 3 rigs right now, 2 underground. And what's beautiful is that they're applying these nice portable rigs that are very flexible. We only need 15, 20 meter holes.
Shallow,
punch them through and demonstrate that mineralization is actually there. And that's key. Now, there's a second theme here too at Plomosas. The original mineralization, the polymetallic breccia that's there, shallow, roughly 45 degrees, room and pillar mining. That is the polymetallic that has the lead and zinc in it. But what was relatively ignored by the previous operators is that you've got these cross-cutting structures, these northeasterlies and more or less northwesterlies, and that these things are cross-cutting and they're secondary and third tertiary mineralization. And you're seeing these fault structures being exploited for the deposition of higher grade silver and gold. So less base metals, more precious metals. And so consequently, what was before noise to the base metal miners, we're actually able now to show continuity on these structures.
Okay.
And that too is going to have an influence on that updated resource.
Okay. So you started a process of demonstrating potential for higher upgrade.
Yes.
That's good. And so give me the timing of those meters and when the market will start seeing these flow through.
Right. Well, right now we are averaging about one news release every 4 weeks or 5 weeks. Okay. So there's a steady news flow on our drilling.
Until when?
And that'll be going through to the end of the fourth quarter.
Okay.
And as I said, we are looking for resource updates in the first quarter of 23.
Right. So that changes the narrative and potential there.
Yep.
Let's go to the second component, which was the resource, the expansion drilling
at San Marcial.
At San Marcial, obviously. Yes. Again, run me through the program there and what you need it to say at the end of the process.
Right. At San Marcial, we're 5 kilometers south of Plomosas. And that's as the crow would fly. Of course, the roads are considerably more than that. But there, Marcio did a great job identifying an old adit that was a bit rough, expanded that to modern dimensions, and created a drill station at the end, which allows for 3-dimensional drilling to depth. So at the end of 21, we drilled 8 holes, underground holes, that gave us excellent results as well. I mean, there we're looking at 18.5 meters of 773 grams per ton, 38 meters of 299 grams per ton. Again, higher than what we were seeing at the level closer to surface. That was the other thing, is that people were interpreting that as surficial enrichment, when in fact it does, as our geological model predicted, have roots. And these roots are what we're now intersecting, these really lovely high-grade intersections. So what we need to do is do more drilling from surface to intersect the extensions of that to depth, as well as more holes from underground from that drill station. What's also cool is that this mineralization we now recognize as being associated with a breccia that is associated with the contact between upper volcanics and lower volcanics. And so we know that geological feature sweeps along for another 5 to 7 kilometers to the southeast. So we are in process of pushing drill roads that will provide the access to further surface exploration drilling, which is coincident with some lovely anomalies, geochemical anomalies at surface as well.
So what have you got on that? Because where there's one breccia, there's usually more, right? So
yes.
What kind of sort of surface activity has gone on in the past? Like what data have you got in terms of hunting down new discoveries?
Well, San Marcial is relatively new in that it was never mined. It hasn't been mined. And it is sitting there roughly the same sort of orientation as what we see at Plomosas. So we're following that orientation to the southeast, that key contact. There's been extensive geophysics that's extending over the property, and we've also got very strong geochemical anomalies that are being tested. We're doing some additional geochem work to get higher resolution for the drill planning at this point in time. And that then extends northward as well. Part of the acquisition of La Trinidad was to fill in the gap between the two concessions, San Marcial and then to the north, Plomosas. And so that gap area also has some very attractive geochemical, lithological indicators.
Right. Good. So we're going to keep it nice and simple today.
Yes.
Because you're going to come back on and maybe get a bit technical with this, which we love. So we've talked about the approach there.
Yes.
Previous conversations suggest that there's other assets in the portfolio, which I think I was told nothing's off the table, as in all options are on the table. Those are different times. Where are they? Is that still the case, or do you think, well, actually, we're reassessing all of the assets within the portfolio and give them a chance to breathe? How are you playing it?
When you look at the core, it's 430 odd square kilometers. You've got there over 75 kilometers of structures, of massive north-northeast structures that are parallel to the western edge of the Sierra Madre Occidental. And that's the main regional orientation. And these three important structures all have associated with them epithermal veining and breccias. Okay, all our focus so far has been on this easterly-most one that includes Plomosas and San Marcial. So we know that extending on some of these parallel structures to the northeast, that there is a lot of mineralization. There are old showings. There's actually a mine, a little private mine called La Colorada that's being mined on a little postage stamp concession inside our own. And work done to the northeast of that on the surface gives us 2.3 meters at 15.5 grams gold. So there's a lot of smoke here. I would love to get more money into the company.
That's the question.
Right? To get more money into the company to check out some of these things.
Right.
With what we have, our focus is on delivering San Marcial and Plomosas.
Obviously.
In the future, in a robust market, it'll be incremental and will be opportunistic.
That's what I was leading to, basically, as I do tend to, which is, that's going to require balance sheet or access to capital.
Sure.
Cheaper capital than you've done recently. But that can only be done by demonstrating you can do what you say you're going to do. And obviously after last year's delays, there's a little bit of residual doubt. Okay?
Absolutely.
Don't tell me, show me time.
Yeah.
How much time are you going to give yourself or give the market on delivering those projects where you feel you have to make a decision, which may be JV, farm out, spin out, sell some of the other assets? Because you're clear, you're very passionate. I think these look fantastic to me. I can do something with that if I've got the money.
The 300 odd square kilometers that we have that we call non-core, there is optionality there, right? And so there's an opportunity to bring someone else in to do something with that relieves the burden from a mining tax concession arrears, but also relieves us the burden of having to explore it. If somebody wants to come in and start spending money and demonstrating how important these multiple structures are, demonstrating other styles of mineralization. I mean, La Trinidad, let's face it, was an open pit oxide gold mine. Okay, completely different style of mineralization from what we're seeing at Plomosas and San Marcial. And so there's an opportunity to demonstrate that. And if someone comes in and advances that, fantastic.
Okay, so still relatively flexible, but you'd like a little bit of time to be able to assess.
Absolutely.
A little bit of time for the market to recover, a little bit of time to see if there's interest in giving you some money to do it.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's leave it there, because I think that's good news that you're on board. Good news that you guys, along with Marcio, have kind of refresh, recalibrated, fine-tuned.
There we go.
The story, because it was like there was all the right bits were there. It perhaps just needed a kind of fresh look at how to kind of roll that out, and it seems like you're giving it that chance.
It's a fortunate circumstance that we have this large, wholly owned property that has multiple structural zones to look at. These incredibly large structures that have multiple styles of mineralization. It's not a simple story from that perspective. It takes time to understand what we have. Now that we have the exploration model that is demonstrating that we know what we're doing and we're hitting high grade, now we understand. Now we can demonstrate to the market.